Hey guys, thank y'all so much for coming. I'm so glad that y'all are here. I hope you enjoy it. You're going to get just a small little taste of what speech and debate is like and what we're training our children to do. I'm going to do the majority of talking about NCSCA and about club towards the end of our meeting. We kind of think that the proof is in the pudding a little bit, so we're going to give you a little taste of debate and a couple of speeches. We're even going to watch something recorded that's super fun, especially if you've ever read The Wind in the Willows. So that's going to be really cool. But welcome, and we're glad you're here. This is a NELA speech and debate. So I'm going to introduce our debaters. We're going to start with a practice debate. I'm Tara, by the way. And one of them just walked out. Okay. I'm going to take a minute to explain the dress code, because you may be thinking, hey, why are these kids in suits? Did I miss the memo? You did not miss the memo. You're totally fine. But when we do competition, we think it's very important to dress professionally. We know that can have a big impact in the world. And I wrote something out that I just want to get right. We understand that professionalism does include a dress code. Today's culture constantly underestimates young people, and yet we realize that a young person who presents him or herself sharply and professionally can and will make an outstanding impression. If our youth are to be taken seriously, that's the goal, no matter what they do, that we want them to be able to be taken seriously. They must learn to dress appropriately for their surroundings. So our dress code is just a standard that we build for respect, fosters unity, and it does limit distractions as well. So I just want to take a moment to explain that. And waiting on my debater. Anybody? Anybody want to step in? Debater? Anybody? No? Okay. There he is. So I'm going to this is going to be a demo debate. So I have shortened this debate from what it typically will be. This is an LD debate, stands for Lincoln Douglas style debate. Debaters, why don't you all go ahead and come up here and take your seats, please, and I'll introduce you in just a moment. This is a one-on-one debate, and this is also, if you've ever heard the term value debate. They're debating a certain value, not policy. And this is going to be, like I said, it's going to be abbreviated, so it won't be exactly like it is at a tournament. It could get a little long for y'all. So we have in the negative, this is David Houston, David Villman. This is just his second year with us and in our club. We are so excited to have their family. Last year was his first year. I don't know if you could possibly do more debate homework than David did. His sister said that she was about to just run him out of the house because he wouldn't stop talking about the resolution. It paid off because he ended up advancing his very first year in debate. So we were very excited about that. That was awesome. This is my middle son, Oren, and this will be his, I didn't rehearse this well, fourth year in speech and debate? Okay. 4th year in speech and debate. Also 4 years in LD debate. He's had a lot of success, especially this year. He did really well, even winning a national tournament. So, with no further ado, they're going to give you an abbreviated style of debate.
It's fine. It actually does. Right and wrong used to be called the law of nature, because people thought that everyone knew it by nature and did not need to be taught it. They were right. C.S. Lewis in his book Mere Christianity makes an insightful point. All people have a conscience, an innate knowledge of principles concerning the distinction between right and wrong. That knowledge is a result of human nature, not experience, and shows why rationalism should be valued above empiricism in today's resolution. Before going any farther, I'd like to define our terms. Dr. Brand Blanchard, a professor of philosophy at Yale University, wrote that, quote, rationalism holds that at least some human knowledge is gained through a priori insight as distinct from sensory experience. The term a priori simply means innate, or prior to our sensory input. Rationalism holds that some knowledge or categories of our knowledge can be found without the aid of our sense experience. That knowledge is either ingrained in us from birth or is deductible by reason alone. Empiricism, on the other hand, according to Dr. Gregory Dawes, denies the existence of innate ideas or principles of reasoning, holding that both our factual knowledge and the concepts we employ are drawn from experience. By nature of these terms, we can make some helpful observations of this resolution. The first is that there is an inherent conflict between these two principles on whether a priori knowledge exists. And the second is that empiricism must prove a broader claim. No matter what my opponent claims, it's not my burden to prove all knowledge is a priori. Because these two philosophies hold vastly different things, it stands to reason they might come to very different sets of knowledge. And you would be right. Empiricism and its methods can be credited with many scientific discoveries and practical observations. The fundamental reason, however, that rationalism should be valued is because it is the source and justification of moral knowledge. My value is morality. According to the Oxford English Dictionary, morality is, quote, principles concerning the distinction between right and wrong and good and bad behavior. Science, medicine, and any other field that has a primary focus on experience and testing are all very good, but they're all bound to be moral. It's never right to test a drug on someone forcibly, and indeed it's questionable to think that a successful and immoral society could exist. If this is true, then what must also be true is that the moral principles that govern our action hold greater value than all others. Thus, at the end of the day, the side which best justifies and provides the source of our moral knowledge should deserve your ballot in this round. This leads me to my first contention. That is that the conscience is a priori knowledge of morality. Professor of Philosophy and Ethics Dr. Paul Copan once reasoned, quote, humans do not have to find out what is moral by reading the Bible. Such knowledge is available to all people. Those without God's special revelation have God's general revelation of his basic moral law in their conscience. What Dr. Copan is stating is that by birth, all people have awareness of moral categories of knowledge. Undoubtedly, the argument for the conscience has strong ties to Christian principles. However, it is clear that no matter the presuppositions you hold, you simply can't ignore the fact that we are innately moral beings. Paul Bloom, a professor of psychology at Yale University, came to this very same conclusion. Quote, humans are born with a hardwired morality, a sense of good and evil that is bred in the bone. This claim is supported now by research in several laboratories. He concludes with, we are naturally moral beings, but our environments can enhance or sadly degrade this innate moral sense. My opponent might claim that our experiences can shape our morality. However, these experiences are only enhancing or degrading something that already exists within us, again proving that our senses are not the source of moral knowledge. Our conscience or moral compass is knowledge of morality unwarranted by any experience or test, and thus rationalism justifies the highest knowledge, the knowledge of right and wrong. Empiricism, however, leads us to much different conclusions, and that leads me to my second contention. Morality is not justified by experience. If there is no a priori knowledge, then there is no innate awareness of moral knowledge or virtue. But these things can't be known by the physical senses. You can't observe or experience something that extends beyond what the senses can perceive. An obligation might be expressed in action, but it can't be perceived. Peter Markey, writing for the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy, puts it this way, quote, judgments and morals involves a form of obligation or value that lies beyond our sense experience, which only informs us about what is the case rather than what ought to be. Using our perception of reality as a basis for moral knowledge will at best leave us judging worth by outcomes and not inherent value. And this is the reason why morality and rationalism must be valued highest.
That was a great speech. Naturally, I have a few questions. First off, could you read your definition for morality again?
It was principles concerning the distinction between right and wrong or good and bad behavior.
All right. thank you. And how is rationalism the source as well as the justification for morality?
Well, just to be clear, I'm not saying that rationalism is in the definition as the source of morality, but rationalism as a philosophy is where we come to moral knowledge through.
All right, thank you. And is innate knowledge ingrained in us from birth?
Yes.
All right, and all people have this innate knowledge?
Yes, to some extent.
All right, thank you. How do we know if something is wrong?
I would say we know it to be wrong, first of all, based on natural law, which we can reason to through our conscience and through our reasoning, but also we have several objective standards like the Bible.
All right, thank you. And you stated that by birth we know certain moral categories after that quote by Paul Bloom, correct?
Yes, basically his study said that we are innately moral beings, but our environments as we grow can enhance or degrade those.
All right, and could you read the first quote before that one, also by him?
Which one are you talking about?
The one about, excuse me.
Humans are born with a hardwired sense of morality, or a hardwired morality, a sense of good and evil that is bred in the bone.
All right, and that did not say innate knowledge, correct?
Yes.
All right, thank you. No further questions. Five minutes. As famous English philosopher John Locke once wrote in his essay concerning human understanding, no man's knowledge can go beyond his experience. Because our knowledge begins with experience, I negate the resolution. Rationalism should not be valued above empiricism. Now, I'll agree to the definitions and conflict as well as the value that Orrin has presented. These are different philosophical views that are in conflict with one another, and they center around the question of whether innate knowledge exists or not. In today's round, we're specifically looking at this in the context of morality. Is there innate knowledge of morality or not? This leads me to my first contention, and that is no innate knowledge. No innate knowledge. Rationalism claims that there is innate knowledge. However, knowledge requires a degree of understanding and awareness that comes only from experience. If there was innate knowledge, sufficient evidence has to show that by birth, all people consciously know it. However, it's impossible to justify or prove innate knowledge because there's no way to determine at birth whether all of us have certain knowledge ingrained in us. As professor of philosophy Nathan Rockwood once said, quote, sometimes innate instincts are mistaken for an example of innate knowledge. We're born with the natural desire to eat and drink, and this might be misconstrued as innate knowledge that we should eat and drink, but this natural desire should not be confused with knowledge, end quote. Often rationalists confuse our human nature as innate knowledge, but this is an ability, not knowledge. We naturally make the distinction between right and wrong, but this sense is not a pre-existing knowledge. In the study that Orrin presented, it states that we have a hardwired sense of morality, but that doesn't say we have innate knowledge. We have a sense of morality. How can we have innate knowledge concerning the distinction between right and wrong if you don't have experience? Claiming that we know how to make that distinction innately is to assume that we know something can be right and wrong without knowing what something is. That's like saying you know how to play the guitar but don't know what a guitar is. After we experience a situation, from there we can make the distinction between if something is right or if something is wrong. But without experience first, we can't make that distinction since we're not aware to what to make a distinction about. This leads me to my second contention: experience is required. Our innate function to make a distinction between right and wrong relies on our experience. This is because experience provides us with the context and understanding needed to use our moral ability. Furthermore, only experience can give us real data about reality. To truly understand the world we live in and make moral judgments requires empirical development and experience. You might not have to directly experience something firsthand to understand it, but you do have to categorize it and have something you can compare it to. The same goes for concepts beyond the physical. When we're first born, we don't know anything about goodness, truth, or virtue. We only know these by looking at things that have these characteristics in the real world. When you're thinking about right or wrong, how do you think of it? You think of it in terms of what you've learned through experience. We think that someone stealing as wrong and someone being generous as good. This is because we don't know what is right and wrong innately. Even if we use our moral ability to make that distinction, it's only after we have experience that we can accomplish this, and it is not innate knowledge. In conclusion, the rationalists argument for innate knowledge is flawed because knowledge requires awareness and understanding that can only come from experience. Without empirical evidence to show that all people consciously know something from birth, it's impossible to justify the existence of innate knowledge. Furthermore, our ability to distinguish between right and wrong requires experience, which provides the necessary context and understanding. For all these reasons, I urge a negative ballot.
First and foremost, we can agree that all of our experiences are subjective.
Sure.
And if I have the ability to act rightly or wrongly, that basically just means I have free will, correct?
Sure.
And if knowledge is innate to the creation, it's there by the means of the creator, correct?
Well, sure.
Okay. And in your view, what does it require for knowledge to be justified?
Well, I don't believe it necessarily requires justification, but in order to be knowledge, one has to consciously know it, and it isn't just something like an ability.
Okay, so basically what you're saying is that knowledge is a belief that you have to have.
Yes, you have to be aware of it.
Okay, and if knowledge is innate to us, meaning that it's in our mind from birth, but we just come to it or we start to enact it later on, does that negate the fact that it's innate?
Well, if we have to enact it or be aware of it, it's not necessarily knowledge beforehand because we don't know it. If to claim that we have something in our head that we didn't know about, how is that knowledge?
If someone programmed you to recognize a football game, and as you're growing up you never saw football, then at some point you saw a football game and you said, that's football and I understand how the game works, would you say that the knowledge of how football works is from your experience?
Could you clarify? Excuse me.
Okay, so if I programmed you to understand how football works, and then one day you saw football and you're like, that's football, I understand how it works, would you say that I know how it works because I saw it?
Yes, because although even if it was programmed into you, you're not consciously aware of what it is. You still have to be aware of it in order to know it.
Okay, so we can agree that basically the whole contention of your case is this, that experience provides us with awareness.
Sure.
Okay, thank you. No further questions. Peter Markey, writing for the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy, explains what rationalism is. He states that you either hold to the innate knowledge thesis or the innate concept thesis. The innate concept thesis is just a different category of knowledge. But he later goes on to write, quote, according to the innate concept thesis, some of our concepts are not gained from experience. They are part of our rational nature in such a way that while sense experiences may trigger a process by which they are brought to consciousness, experience doesn't actually provide the concepts. Again, just to be clear, a concept is simply a broad category of knowledge. The reason this matters in today's round is going back to the question I asked him in Cross-Ex. If I programmed you to understand football, and then you saw a football game and you understood it, would your understanding come from you just seeing the football game? I would say that no, it doesn't come from that. I programmed you to understand football. Applying this to the topic in discussion, which is morality, I would say we have innate understanding of morality. And philosophers have never disagreed that experience may trigger this innate understanding, but experience doesn't provide the concepts in and of themselves. If I programmed you to understand football and you saw a football game and then you understood it, you wouldn't say that's necessarily because of the experience, because you would never come to that understanding if it wasn't programmed from the start. And this goes to what is innate knowledge. Innate knowledge is knowledge ingrained in us from birth. As I asked him in Cross-Ex, if it's innate to the creation, it must be because of the Creator. And that is the justification or reason why this knowledge is true. If it's innate to us, then it's there because of our Creator, because of God. And so we can justifiably assume that it's going to be true, and it provides a standard for all of humanity. At the end of the day, I believe that knowledge does exist because of our human nature. We can see it in studies done by Paul Bloom. We can see it through the conscience. My opponent, again, claimed that this is simply an ability. morality is an ability, but he didn't actually cite any evidence to support this. He simply said that we have innate abilities, and I can agree. But what would an innate ability of morality look like? First of all, it wouldn't look like my definition, which was principles concerning the distinction of right and wrong, not actions that are right and wrong. But second of all, it would just be free will. I asked him in Cross X, if you have the ability to act rightly or wrongly, that's simply free will, and you can no longer call it morality at all. So either we have morality and it's innate knowledge, or we don't have any of it, none of it. But how would the conscience make sense? How would our objective understanding of right and wrong, which as C.S. Lewis explained is called the law of nature, make sense if it weren't innate to us? He even agreed in Cross X, our experiences are subjective. So how do we have objective and common sense understandings of right and wrong if each and every one of our experiences are subjective? It must be innate. For these reasons, an affirmative ballot should be considered.
Now, in this last negative speech, I'd hope to leave you with two main points that you can take away and then make the decision afterwards. The first point is that a concept does not equal knowledge. Again, a concept does not equal knowledge. If we have a concept ingrained in us from birth, and then later on we're aware of it and it becomes knowledge, that is completely fine with my burden to prove. My burden to prove is that all knowledge originates in experience, not that all concepts originate. So even if there is innate concepts, innate knowledge would be different because innate knowledge is being aware of it. As I stated in Cross-X, knowledge basically equals awareness, and I brought that up, and he basically brought up that concepts, we have innate concepts of morality, but innate concept does not equal knowledge until we're aware of it. And since it is not knowledge until we have experience, that point still stands. Now, this next point I brought up is there is no justification that everyone has the same innate morality. I brought up the fact that if everyone does have it, where is the sufficient evidence to prove every single person has innate morality? It's impossible to prove that because we cannot reach every single person. There's no physical way we can achieve 100% certainty that everyone has the same morality, let alone it be knowledge and everyone know the same thing. Now, lastly, I brought up this point about it being ability, and he said, yes, we do have innate abilities, but morality is not an ability, it's knowledge. But his definition itself says principles concerning the distinction. If it's concerning the distinction, that would mean, if he's claiming we have innate knowledge of morality, then that means we innately know principles concerning the distinction. If it is concerning the distinction, regardless of whether or not this morality is knowledge, it is still concerning the distinction, meaning we make the distinction between knowledge. And if it is knowledge afterwards, that means we're simply aware of our ability to make that distinction. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. That was really good. Okay, I forgot all kinds of things, basically. I'm not as good as they are. I'm going to explain a little bit about what you just saw and how it's different from what happens at a tournament. And then we're actually going to watch a video that we were supposed to watch at the beginning. Oh, I forgot. So first of all, that was probably the biggest audience possibly that David has ever debated in front of. He's saying yes. So a little scary. So just so y'all know, at a tournament, when you're doing your rounds of debate, you're in a much smaller room. The reason I had this table set up here, that was just to show y'all what a real debate round is like. You will have a judge in front of you, and you may not have anybody else in the room. You may just be you and your opponent and the judge in those beginning preliminary rounds. Now, if you were to make it to some out rounds, if you to make it to finals or championship, that sort of thing, you may get a bigger room, you may get an audience, but that's not typically the way you're going to start out. So when, if there's some kids in here going, oh my word, I'm never going to do this because I'm not getting up on that stage, just know this is actually not what it is at tournaments. It's round after round of practice in a room with one judge. When I first started with speech and debate, I thought this is what my kids had to do. This is what it was. When I realized, I was like, oh, it's just in a room, practicing. Okay, that's a lot different. This year's resolution, if you didn't catch it, was very philosophical. I'm so glad to be done with it. I was so over it, after the second month, I think. Rationalism ought to be valued above empiricism. And when we first heard that resolution, I think most of us, at least myself, said, hold up, time out, let's just get a dictionary out and let's find out what those words mean. But this is what they've been debating this whole year. Even 12-year-olds, 12 all the way through 18 or 19, have been debating this resolution all year. Now, you'll be super happy to know this is a great year. This coming year is a great year to get in on because our resolution is so much better. I love it. In combat, and correct me if I'm wrong, guys, in combat, automation ought to be valued above military personnel. Okay, they're saying yes. So we get a new resolution every single summer. The resolution also stays the same for the entire year. So the kids are able to really build on it, work on it, refine their cases. It's not like we're changing it every time and they don't really know what they're going to be debating. So this new resolution is really great, especially for some younger debaters, because it's not nearly as philosophical. It's going to be much easier to wrap your brain around. Lack of audience. Let's see. My husband reminded me to tell y'all something. When you go to a tournament, you will debate 6 times. You will debate 3 times as affirmative and 3 times as negative. So you're going to be preparing both sides. That's just what they decided to do for y'all tonight. Okay, I think that's all I wanted to say about the debate. Now I'm going to roll this video that we were supposed to roll at the beginning, but it's super cool, so if you got in late, you didn't miss it. So we're going to roll that now.
And they ask me questions of why I go to church, why do I do speech and debate, I'm able to give that testimony and that reason of why that hopefully persuades them.
NCFCA is really great for building social skills, talking skills, and it's going to benefit us for the rest of our lives.
Would you like to influence culture, gain the confidence to speak truth with grace? NCFCA helps teens learn real-world communication skills that equip them for life.
What I have learned is really to think on my feet and to analyze questions more specifically.
Learning how to think critically, because everywhere in today's culture we only see people taking everything at face value.
I have 4 adult children, every single one of them using the very specific skills that they learned in the NCFCA. So it is a skill set that translates directly into professional skill in the community. And being able to do that articulately and kindly and with grace sets them apart in their fields. And we've experienced that directly.
With NCFCA, teens forge friendships and thrive in a constructive community.
At tournaments, you're all there for a reason and you're working together for a purpose.
NCFCA is a different community. A lot of people willing to open up, talk with me, especially on my novice tournament.
I just love the community of being here. People everywhere. You get to hang out with friends and you get to support each other whether or not you win or lose.
Not only is this just an awesome community, but your beliefs get challenged. You learn how to defend your faith. I think it's just something that you do not find anywhere else in the world.
And it's a safe place to do that too. You've got parents that love you and you've got community judges who want to help you grow and support, and I think it's a really awesome and safe place to do that you would not find anywhere else.
Yes.
And I just thought that's the kind of student I want my homeschool student to be, and those are the kind of kids that I want them hanging out with. So that's basically why I joined, and it's been the best, most beneficial thing that I have done for my kids for high school.
Everybody helps each other to succeed. Yes, they're all competing, but we're all trying to achieve that same goal.
I quickly learned that this was really not just a speech league, nor is it a debate league per se, but it's a communication league.
but it teaches you really a lot of life skills. So not just how to debate, but how to communicate in real life and how to have a good attitude. But NCFCA is also just so fun. Like, debating is my favorite thing now.
They've learned more in 2 years than I've learned probably in 20 years. They've come out of their shells. They're just comfortable speaking, and it's exciting. It's going to help them in their careers, but it's going to help them in defending their faith. So it's just got so much value. They've grown so much. They've made friends, lifelong friends.
What I told moms or parents around is, if you have NCFCA as an extracurricular, only one extracurricular class, that's the class that you have to have.
You're not going to be playing football forever, you're not going to be dancing forever, but you will be speaking for just about as long as you live. In speech and debate, you are left with solid skills that you will use for the rest of your life.
Are you ready to build the skills to communicate truth with integrity and grace? Learn more about NCFCA Christian Speech and Debate at ncfca.org.
Okay, that was super cool. You might have recognized our family here. They were one of the mom and dad that was interviewed. That was taken just this year at one of our tournaments that they did, so I was super excited to be able to show that to you. I'm going to introduce another one of our speakers, and I'm going to take a moment just to talk about speech. So speech and debate is obviously, we have debate, we also have speech, and there are, I believe, 10 different events. We have limited preparation speeches, where, just as that sounds, you have a limited time to prepare for the speech, and then you give a speech. We have platform speeches. That's going to be persuasive, informative, and digital speeches. Then we have interpretation speeches, and I'm going to show a video of that tonight. It's super fun, where you're acting out a piece of literature. So there's a lot of different styles. Almost every student can find something that kind of fits them, and maybe even an area that challenges them more. But our next speaker, Isabella, is Isabella Villman. This is her second year as well. And she is going to give us this speech that she wrote this past fall, and it's a very special speech, and we're so happy to have her give it to us, and we pray that it touches your heart. This is a persuasive. This was her first year, and at her very first tournament, she advanced to elimination rounds with this speech. So it obviously connected with a lot of people, so we're excited to hear it. Thank you, Isabella.
Imagine a young girl, around the age of 10 or 11. She grew up in a Christian sheltered home, and her parents put boundaries in place to protect her from internet dangers. But one app slipped through their barriers undetected. Through the gateway of social media, she found many things that made her question who she was and everything she thought she stood for. She started to believe that abortion was okay, because why wouldn't we want to support women's rights? She thought that being a part of the LGBTQ was okay, because not doing so denied a part of yourself that God made. Ideas like these eventually led her down a dangerous path, filled with rebellion, addiction, depression, and more. Today, I'm going to expose the dangers of social media, especially in the hands of the youth. And while there are many dangers we could discuss, I'm going to focus and expound upon two specific examples: using social media as a source of knowledge and the growing problem of body image issues. My goal is to convince you how these dangers target our young people and persuade you to make the difference God calls us all to make. The first point I'd like to bring to your attention is the high susceptibility of young people to use social media as a source of knowledge. According to a 2019 study conducted by Cambridge professor Peter Jones, a neuroscience expert, the human brain doesn't fully develop until around the age of 30 years old. So why does our society feel the need to give unlimited access to social media to young adults, teens, and tweens? Even your Google accounts say your child becomes an adult at 13. Many of these naive young people don't fully understand that social media is largely false and should be used as entertainment only. According to a 2021 Temple University study, 67% of Americans have come across fake news on social media, and 10% of US adults have knowingly shared fake news. To further illustrate why exposure to social media should only come with age and maturity, let me share a personal example. My mom is Caucasian and my dad's Filipino. And as a biracial child, surrounded by a very inclusive and diverse community, I had never really experienced racism. But as I grew older, I unfortunately ran into those who weren't as kind to me as those in my home or church. Some of them were more subtle and even came across as jokes, such as people making the assumption I'm good at math or that I know karate because of my Asian heritage. But others were more overt and hurtful. One such example was when a random lady at a shopping mall came up to my mother and I and asked her where she adopted me from. While her heart was in the right place, she mentioned something about her friend trying to find an adoption center. Her words were still hurtful. My parents were able to use this opportunity to appropriately explain to my still growing brain the concept of racism. But what if I was exposed to racism through posts or comments from social media? Just like that girl at the beginning of my speech, it's a very real possibility that I could have developed stereotypical ideas myself. That is why I say access to unlimited and unmonitored information is just one danger social media poses to those whose minds are still malleable and vulnerable. Which leads me to the second danger I'd like to discuss. Body image issues are only further developed through social media. According to an article by the American Psychology Association, Dr. Gary Goldfield says adolescence is a vulnerable period for the development of body image issues, eating disorders, and mental illness. Today, anyone can post anything, and naive young people are especially prone to believe everything they see, even if photos are manipulated to show a false reality. A study conducted by the Pew Research Center found that adults under 30, whom we have already established as still developing mentally, trust information from social media the same as information coming from national news outlets. One example of this is when celebrities, who already promote perfect images with their surgically altered physiques, go out of their way to edit photos of themselves to give young adults even more reason to want to change their bodies. Not only this, but many even feel pressure by the idea that they question their identity as a man or a woman even a bit. They are transgender, need to have gender-reaffirming care. This care usually includes life-altering and irreversible hormones to change their natural biological anatomy. Not only does this disturbing trend completely destroy the precious body God has given us, but there are numerous accounts of those who felt pressured by the supposed responsible adults in their lives to receive this care as children and have regretted it. According to a 2020 study conducted by the Journal of Homosexuality, 50% of the transgender respondents ended up reverting back to their original sex. And nearly 75% of those respondents were first influenced to become transgender through social platforms and online groups. Now, what do you think was the average age range of these respondents? Maybe 30? How about 25? Or even 20? It was actually 17. 17. Statistics such as these only further prove how easily influenced teens are by social media, even to the extent of making life-altering decisions. Now, after presenting all of this evidence to you, we have arrived at my third and final point. What can you do about it? I won't deny there are some positive aspects of social media, such as the ability for churches to live stream to those who are unable to attend physical service. But I still do not support the idea of giving unrestricted access to social media to teens. And while there are safeguards and preventative measures you can invest in, nothing will ever be 100% effective. More important than any monitoring software you can get, parents need to make sure they have established authentic relationships with their children and provide a way for them to freely express their thoughts. Then, help your child establish a relationship with Jesus Christ. Get them involved in the church. Teach them how to read the Word of God. And don't just tell them not to do something without explaining the why. Think about it. You only have a limited amount of time to teach and prepare your kids, and then they'll be on their own. Monitoring softwares and restrictive settings will only work for so long. But the lifelong benefits of having a real, authentic relationship with Jesus Christ will far outlast their teenage years. Now, does this mean that if you do everything I've said, that your child will never be exposed to these dangers and will have a perfect relationship with Christ? Of course not. But Proverbs 22:6 reminds us to train up a child in the way he should go. And when he is old, he will not depart from it. So while you might not be able to decide your child's salvation for them, you can act as the example your child needs. But wait a minute, what makes me qualified to say this method works in the first place? Well, do you remember that girl we talked about at the beginning of my speech? That girl was me, and this is my story. You might be thinking, oh, well, that only happened to her because her parents gave her access to Facebook too early. But it wasn't Facebook, it wasn't Instagram, and it wasn't even TikTok or Snapchat. My experience was through a coloring app for children. But how does a kid's coloring app, something most parents wouldn't even bat an eye at, become social media? Because of the app's Comments feature, an ability to post personal pictures, hundreds were utilizing an innocent coloring game as a social platform. And since this isn't what the app was originally designed for, there were little to no safeguards. I met many who convinced me I was simply advocating for human rights. But in reality, it was the enemy feeding me lies right under my nose. But why? Why was it so easy to deceive me? Because my brain was still growing. I was unable to see the fault in my own logic. But as my parents stepped in, showed me how God's word addressed these issues, and helped me understand my identity in Christ, my views became clear. That is why I urge you to take a second look at the apps on your child's phone. The same confusion, anger, and pain I felt could be what your child is dealing with right now. And don't be swayed by the fact that it seems like every child or teen has access to social media. Your job as parents is to protect your kids. You have the God-given authority to make a difference. It's because of all of these reasons that I will continue to petition that social media should not be given to teens unless there is real evidence of an established relationship with Jesus Christ. Thank you.
Okay, I have tears in my eyes. Y'all, that was from a girl that I don't know if it would be a stretch to say probably didn't even want to come to club last year. I don't think she did. And she was so just shy and quiet and timid. And just to see her grow and blossom, I just can't believe it. And that speech that you just heard, that's from her. That's not anything prompted by me or the club or NCFCA. That's from her heart. And as I was sitting there listening, I just felt compelled to give a little plug for parents. When you come to a tournament and you sit in that judge's seat, speech after speech, you begin to really wonder who's really growing here at these tournaments. Our mamas are saying yes. You're listening to these kids, they're coming in, they're sharing their heart, they're sharing what's on their mind, and you're blown away. And after my first tournament, I cried many times during speeches. They usually have tissues, for us moms. We're like, oh my gosh. But you realize, okay, not only am I witnessing the growth of these students, I myself am being challenged, and I'm growing, and I'm being inspired. It's a whole, what happens with parents at tournaments is a whole nother thing that we could talk about, whether you're judging or even when you move into helping with staff, the tournaments. It's a constant opportunity to grow. I don't know what I would be without speech and debate. Okay, that was one of the platform speeches. I'm going to give you another taste of another speech. This is a limited preparation speech. Landry, you can come up. This is Landry. This is our youngest. We have 3 categories in limited preparation. We have apologetics. The students get 4 minutes to prepare a speech. We have extemporaneous, where they get actually 20 minutes to prepare a 7-minute speech. But this is impromptu. He's going to have 2 minutes to prepare a speech. Y'all, I have no idea what he's about to say. And this is recorded, so no, it should be great. But he's going to give us a speech. Oh, I know what I was going to say. I overheard him talking with a friend the other day. They were just in the back of the truck, and the friend was like, hey, so what is speech and debate all about? Does it just kind of help you, like talk to people? And I was listening to what he's going to say, and it was so good, Landry. I just have to, it's been my thing. But he kind of paused for a minute, and he goes, speech and debate changes who you are. It changes the way you think. And I was listening, I was like, oh, I like that. I'm going to use that. So I stole that from, do you want to go ahead and, do you want to take your 2 minutes? Okay. He's going to take 2 minutes to prepare, and then he's going to get up and give us a speech.
I just want to turn this off. Whoa.
You gotta stand up there to be on the.
A long time ago, in a place far, far away, there lived a man. Well, actually, quite a few men, because this was just a city. The city was called Athens. And in this city lived a man named Solon. Now, Solon was a very, very wise man. That was what he was known for. But when called upon for his wisdom, he did not give the answer that someone expected him to give. You see, the person who called upon him was King Croesus. He was the richest man in all of the earth in that time, of course. That was what he was known for, is that he was known for his riches. And what he wanted was for Solon to come and give him some of his wisdom. And so he called Solon to his palace and asked him to start asking him some questions. But how does this actually relate back to our topic today, which I've drawn, which is all is well that ends well? Well, you see, Solon didn't get the answers needed or wanted by the king, because what he had to give was wisdom, and that is not what the king wanted. But as we'll see later in this speech, is that this actually plays back into the all is well because it will end well. And now I'll break this down in 2 points. First of all, the point of Solon's perspective, and secondly, the point of Paul's perspective. You see, from Solon's worldview, wisdom was the highest thing you could have. It was not the riches, and he realized that. So when the king started asking him who is the richest man in all the earth, he said, well, obviously it's you. That's a no-brainer. But then he started asking him some more questions, and he said, all right, well, who's the happiest man in all the earth? And Solon says, aha, I got it. He's like, it's this old peasant man who used to live beside me in Athens. And the king looked at him and says, but I'm the richest person. And he says, oh yes, but this peasant died with his family around him. He died with the knowledge that, well, actually, I've lived a good life. And then the king asked him again, and he said, who's the second happiest man of all the earth? And he's like, obviously, it's got to be me. And someone again was like, well, no, it's actually not you. It's this other man who died in battle, died fighting for his country and fighting for what he believed for. And he's like, well, okay, we'll find it. Who's the third happiest man in all of the earth? Surely it's me. I'm pretty happy, right? And someone says, well, not actually. He says, you see, the reason why I haven't told you that you're the happiest man, even though it might feel like it at the time, is because you aren't dead yet. And now that might seem a little bit, sobering, but here's the point, is that you cannot tell someone's happiness until their life has actually ended. Is that as Christians, we must look at Paul's perspective. Now, Solon had a great perspective, is that, well, we must wait till we die to actually see if you're happy. But we actually don't have to live that way. You see, as Christians, we know that salvation is what's at the end for us. Is that we don't have to live our life in fear of, oh, well, maybe my circumstances will change and, whatever may happen. We don't have to wait to die to actually know that all is well. Like in the song, it says, all is well within my soul. And why is that? Because we know that it will end well. Is that actually what happened, what is the rest of that story, is that King Croesus was actually conquered by King Xerxes of the Persians. His family was killed, his kingdom was taken, and his happiness was stripped from him. And at that moment, when he was about to be killed, he realized the wisdom in Solon's words. Is that it was not until he had actually realized what happiness was. It was realizing what is truly of value, and that is not your material things. You see, Paul, we hear of Paul in the Bible quite a bit. He wrote some very awesome books, but he was persecuted so much, and yet, ironically, he was content. You see, he wasn't known for his wisdom. In fact, he was being known for getting beat up and thrown out of cities. That was his kind of thing, is that often he would end up left for dead. Multiple times he was beaten within inches of his life, and yet he was content. How is this? Again, all is well because it will end well. Paul had assurance in his salvation, is that he knew that Jesus Christ is his Lord and Savior, and therefore he had no worries in this world. His soul was at peace. In the middle of the storm, he was not afraid. Just like Jesus was not afraid in the middle of the storm, he easily calmed it with his hand. You see, if we take Paul's perspective and look about our lives and all the struggles we face, that's not actually where our happiness lies. That is not where we can say all is well, although it may be well or it just may not be well. You see, where actually it lies and where it matters is in the soul. Is if we take a look at our life, we must take a look into our own soul to actually value or gather whether we are happy, truly happy, or not. It is because that we as Christians can say, it is well within my soul, that we can know that it can end well. We know all is well because Jesus is our Savior. All is well because it will end well. Thank you.
Sorry.
5:20.
Overtime. Okay, that was really awesome. Thank you, Landry. That was a treat for me. I don't get to hear my kids in promptus very often. Okay, so now we're going to transition. I'm going to show an interpretation video. The reason I'm showing a video and not live is because we actually don't have any interpreters. We haven't as of yet in our club. But we're going to venture into it this year. It's super fun. And I just wanted you to see this video and see how much fun speech and debate can be too. It's not just getting up and giving a serious speech. A lot of kids have a lot of fun doing This is a duo. Admittedly, they're very good. They were at nationals. They got second. Anybody read The Wind in the Willows? I was hoping there might be one, but I see somebody. Okay, I read it like last year, fell in love with it. I thought it was like a little kid's book. It's not. It's amazing. This is Wind in the Willows, so enjoy.
My name is Simon Brandt.
And I'm Seth Brandt.
And we're the team of Brandt Brandt.
Do you mind if we remove our name tags and or glasses?
All right, thank you. Judges, our timer is cleared. All 5 of you ready? All right, let's go and get started.
Ah, Mr. Badger. Mr. Mole, Miss Rat, the hour has come. What hour? Toad's hour. I said I was going to take him in hand, and I mean to today. Right, Toad's hour. We'll teach him to be a sensible Toad, won't we? Well, there's a new and exceptionally powerful motor car that will be arriving at Toad Hall this very morning. It must be off ere it's too late. I'll rescue that poor unhappy animal. Mother Nature is full of many wonderful mysteries, not the least of which are talking animals in their natural habitats. But of course, appearances...
Dude, what are you doing?
I'm narrating.
Since when was Sir David Attenborough adding the script?
Whoa, you said it was cool, man.
I was joking. I said I was joking.
Mole, rat, and bat. Mole, rat, and bat fight an uphill battle, constantly confronting their good friend Toad.
But he ignores their correction and excuses his sin.
As Luke 13:3 says, quote, "No, I tell you, unless you repent, you will all likewise perish," end quote.
And so we present to you The Wind in the Willows
by Kenneth Grahame.
But before we continue, we like to assure the audience that no animals were harmed in the production of this speech.
And all jailbreaking, stunt driving, and weapon handling were handled by professionals. Come out here and sit down there, Toad. My friends, as you all well know, Toad here has disregarded all the warnings we've given him, gone on squandering the money his father's left him, and has given us animals a bad name in the district with all his furious driving and smashes and rows with the police. Well, Toad here has at last seen the error of his ways. I have a solemn promise to that effect. So, Toad, go on, tell them.
No, I'm not sorry.
What, you backsliding animal? Didn't you just tell me in there that...
Yes, of course, Badger. I'd have said anything in there to make you believe me. But I've been thinking about it since and going over it, and I find I'm not the least bit sorry or repentant, really. So it's no earthly good saying I am now, is it?
Well, if you won't yield to persuasion, we'll have to see what some force can do, eh? Slow down. Toad, you've often asked us three animals to come and stay with you, and now we're going to. We'll take him upstairs and we'll lock him in his bedroom until he changes his mind. Right.
Toad!
How did they open?
Oh, Ratty, how little you realize my poor condition. I hate being a burden to my friends, but would you please go fetch the doctor for me?
The doctor? The doctor? You can't leave me bad enough for that yet. Let's talk about something else.
I'm afraid, dear friend, talk can do little in a case like this. And I hate being additional burden, but will you please go fetch the lawyer as well?
The what?
For my will!
I need that! I need that! I'll be right
back. A smart piece of work that. Brain against brute force, and brain comes out on top again. Now, to escape. What a magnificent motor car!
Ah, she is a real beaut there.
Would you kindly let me try and drive a little bit, sir?
Oh, I don't know. All right.
Now I wondered, is this a sort of car that starts easily?
Well, you just go like, well, easy now.
Now let's go! Not sorry, and it wasn't folly at all. It was simply glorious.
Mr. Toad, the only difficulty I can see in this otherwise very clear case is how to make it sufficiently hot for someone like you. Mr. Clerk, what are the very stiffest of penalties we can impose without giving Mr. Toad here the benefit of any doubt? Because there isn't any.
Well, according to my calculations, if you were to say 12 months for the theft, 15 years for the furious driving, another year for the cheek, which is Pretty bad sort of cheek. That would tot up to around 19 years.
First rate.
But we'd probably better make it around 50 years to be on the safe side.
An excellent suggestion. Done.
Oh, Ratty, shut the blinds, shut the blinds. Oh, Ratty, you will not believe what I've been through since I've seen you last. Such trials, such adventures, and all so nobly born. They had me locked in prison for a sentence of 50 years, but only through my brilliance and my brilliance did I manage to escape. They left it unlocked. Oh well. I'm going to tell you about my last exploit.
Don't you see what an awful idiot you've been making yourself out to be? All because you must needs go steal a motor car.
Oh yes, Bradley, I've been quite a conceited old fool, I see that. We'll have a smoke and a quiet chat, and we'll stroll on down to Toad Hall and get things set back on old lines again.
Stroll down to Toad Hall. What are you talking about?
Toad Hall, my old home. Haven't you heard? Heard what, Ratty?
Oh, no.
Ratty, what haven't I heard?
Well, you know, the Stoats and Weasels, they've kind of taken Toad Hall.
The Stoats and Weasels?
Don't slow down.
Golly, soon to see about that, won't we? When I... Oh, Mr. Badger.
You troublesome little animal, you! Aren't you ashamed of yourself? What do you think your father, my old friend, would have to say to you if he'd been here tonight?
All right. I've been quite a bad friend, haven't I, to all three of you? I'm truly sorry for my misguided conduct, and I promise from here on out to give up motor cars entirely and forever. Probably.
Well, we're going to let bygones be bygones, and try and turn over a new leaf, and take back Toad Hall.
Now, the Badger Rat and I have been back and forth from Toad Hall, and it's always the same thing. They've got sentries posted here, and the list goes on. So it's impossible to take it by storm.
But there are more ways of taking a place than by storm. There's a secret underground passage that is straight from here to the center of Toad Hall.
And that is where we're going to go to take it back, by a little bit of a surprise.
Right.
What? By golly, you're cheating and you know it.
What do you mean talking to me like that?
Oh, I'm gonna cut you up. You little... Was that you? I thought it was you. A secret passage? Huh? What? You think the you folk could take on none of us Stoats and Weasels, do you?
The Chief Weasel, I take it.
That's what, Badger. You're going down.
Really? Go on, son!
That's the last of them. The rest of them ran off once they heard the screams and the yells.
Is anyone else hungry?
Yeah, I'm a bit peckish.
The pleasures of our sin are only temporary, but the repentance that's found in Christ is eternal. As Luke 17:3 says, if your brother sins, rebuke him, but if he repents, forgive him. Thank you.
Okay, that was, I hope y'all enjoyed it. I know it was a little bit long and whatever. And it can be a little bit confusing if you're unaware of the story, but that was Wind in the Willows. Maybe it'll inspire you to read it. Okay, we're about to wrap up. We're going to wrap up hearing from David and Isabella. Are y'all? Okay, I wanted y'all to hear from them. This is just their beginning, their second year, and they just started this last year, and they're going to share just a couple of minutes, just kind of the way they felt when they first got started, and how speech and debate actually changed their mindset probably. So I'll give y'all a few minutes. Here you go.
Thank you. Some of you may be here today because your parents forced you to be here. And trust me when I say I can relate to your pain. That's exactly what happened to me when my parents did the same thing to me last year. And I was terrified. To me, speech and debate was me, standing in front of a huge crowd and talking for hours, when in reality it's usually you speaking to your judge for only a limited amount of time. But this isn't what made me like speech and debate. This isn't what made me want to do speech and debate. It's the connections that I made. Now, I said usually it's you and your judge, but sometimes it's you and a few of your friends, which is the reason why I love speech and debate. I've met so many awesome, amazing, and like-minded people that I would have never met them otherwise if it wasn't for speech and debate. One of my favorite tournament memories is from my first regional championship, where we were sitting there and waiting for breaks, which is basically where they announce who gets to go forward. And unfortunately, I didn't make it. But even though one of my best friends did, she didn't run off immediately to go celebrate her win. She came over, sat beside me, and comforted me in my loss. And it's moments like these that make me truly appreciate NCFCA and what they stand for. Your competitors aren't just that. They're more. They're your friends. And at the end of the day, no matter who wins or who loses, who debates who or who goes against who, they're there for you. And that's why I love NCFCA so much.
I personally was not interested in speech and debate either when our parents first introduced us to it. We were basically dragged into that first informational meeting, and I was not looking forward to it. But after a while, I started to realize this isn't just some boring educational seminar. It's something that's different. It's not just a competition either, but there's connections. As she said, you meet a lot of friends, and it's not just competitors either. They're there to support you, and they're there for you as well. I met my best friend at literally my first tournament, and he lives in Alabama. I would never have met him if I never went to that tournament. But the thing is, it's not what you think. You may think that this is just, it's going to be really challenging. And at times you will face challenges, but it's not just about trying to do good. And in the end, it's all about equipping yourself for the real world. Making sure that you're strong and you can defend your faith as a Christian. But just along with it, the competition and the competitors, as well as friends, are the best part about it. Trust me, if you don't think you're gonna like it, just give it a try. You might.
Thank you, guys. One thing that I loved, I asked them to give a similar little testimony at a co-op a couple months ago. And one thing that I loved that he said then was that he didn't want to do it at first. And then he found himself scraping all of his allowance to begging his parents to take him to yet another tournament. So he went from like, don't make me do this, to here, it's all my money. Can we please go to another one? So I'm going to, Cassie, you want to pass out those? They're right there sitting on that thing. I'm going to let the kids go out and start on the cookies and drinks. I'm going to talk to y'all just a little bit. So if y'all want to take the kids out, boys, go make sure that everybody's got cookies and drinks. Let's go ahead and turn it off. The lobby. Wyatt, turn off the lobby. Okay, Cassie's going to hand y'all some information, and I'll go over that information. And I'm also ready, and I can take any questions too. Bella, if I step down here, am I still in the camera? Okay, I don't like the lights, but I'll stay up here. This is being recorded, which is why we're using the microphone, because we had some families that wanted to be here that couldn't be here. So you just got a handout. This gives us a little information about our club. It's $50 per student. There will be some additional costs for some curriculum, some source books. When it comes to debate, something that can be very comforting is to realize that your new students will not have to be writing their own debate cases, that we will be able to give them their cases and they can choose to just use those cases as is. They can choose to modify them, or they can choose to even just use that case as a framework and as a help to help them write another case that's all their own. It's their choice, but it's something that can be really helpful for a new debater. When it comes to debate, it's not, for our new debaters, it's not how well can you write your case, it's learning how to practice with the case. So that's what a source book is. We meet on Thursdays. Most Thursdays, might be a couple that we don't meet, starting September 19th through December 12th, and then that's it. We don't meet again after Christmas. The tournaments start after Christmas, and we decide not to meet again after that because we're already busy doing our tournaments, trying to get our school done, and that sort of thing. One reason why I decided to speak with y'all without the kids is you might be thinking, as Dave and Isabella also told you, like, hey, my kids don't want to do this, or hey, my kid is shy, or whatever. And we're just here to tell you and hear it from them as well, is that, now, of course, you know your child the best, but sometimes it might be, they might need a little bit of push, even through club, because even club, I'm just going to be real with y'all, it won't feel amazingly fun. What really gets them is when they go to a tournament. I like to compare it to going to driver's ed, but then never getting out on the road. That would be a drag, and it really wouldn't even be that useful to go to driver's ed and yet never get out on the road and drive. That's kind of like what a tournament is. So if you have a reluctant student or a nervous student or a shy student, just know that they're in good company, that most of them do start that way. One of my sons is a true introvert, the one who debated. Very much, on the scale of being an introvert, he's pretty high. And he does this. He's still an introvert, right? But he's able to find his groove and exercise those things. When we had some testing done, she said, well, he's a big introvert. It might be good if he did speech and debate. I said, oh, well, we've got that checked, so good. And then my other son is an extrovert, and so I feel like speech and debate has challenged them and refined them in different ways, even though they're very different. Okay, so we meet on most Thursdays. There's the schedule there. We do speech. I lengthened our dinner, from last year, guys, just because I think it's really important for us to be able to talk and have fellowship. So we have time for fellowship there, and then we move into debate. The requirements are to affiliate with NCFCA, to attend our debate camp. Debate camp will be July 15th and 16th. And my oldest and Isabella, they're actually in the back, they'll be leading our debate camp. And they were the national champions last year, so they have lots of experience. And Oren will also be helping. He's had lots of debate experience as well. We will be doing LD debate at debate camp. And we ask that you participate in one in-person tournament. Again, that's just me giving you my advice and my wisdom, saying, don't come to driver's ed and never get out on the road. Try the road one time, and most likely you and your students will be hooked. I'm not going to go through every bit of it. On the second the last page, she asked a question about our region. So we're Region 7 in NCFCA, and we will have tournaments in Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, or Tennessee. Normally it's going to be Louisiana, Alabama, and Tennessee. I know a couple of dates, so I put those dates on there for you, but some are still being decided. Cost to affiliate with NCFCA is down there. Tournament entry fees, event fees. And that's pretty much it. So now we either can just go into an informal time of just eating our refreshments and talking. But if you have any questions, I'm happy to just address your questions now. Yeah. Of course. So Sherry Ward is in Ruston. I don't know if she had the speech club up and running last year. I think she might. Yeah, Yeah, they really are focused on interp in speech, which is kind of a compliment to us. That's an area that I'm not quite as strong in, is interp speeches. But that's what she has. But you're right, she doesn't have debate. They are. These clubs run completely independently. So I don't, like, her requirements may be different as well. In fact, I know they are. You can go to her club and not ever go to a tournament. Where I decide to operate a little bit differently. Yeah, but yeah, she's a great friend of mine, and so that's why she's on there as well. Yeah, what's some of your other questions? Because I'm sure your questions are great questions that everybody's thinking, so it's great. The debate camp? The debate camp? Is that right? Okay. Yes. Yeah, no, you're fine. That is the way, yes, absolutely. Anybody can come to camp and not even come to club. The opposite is not necessarily true. If you want to come to camp, we are going to ask and encourage you to come to, if you want to come to club, we're going to ask you to come to camp. If you cannot make those dates, hey, we're on vacation, but we really want to do club, that's fine. There are some online options for you. I know sports does this, right? And like if you join the basketball team, then there's the mandatory basketball camp or whatever. This is kind of that same idea. This is going to give your student a great introduction so that when we get started in club, we're not having to start, like before square one. That's the purpose of it. To camp. Yes, there is. I haven't totally decided on it. Between 100, 150 per student, that's about where I'm at. I need to crunch some numbers. LD debate. Good, yeah. No, it's going to be here at this church those 2 days. And camp is great. Invite your friends, whatever. I know I've got some other students that are probably planning to come to camp that aren't going to join our club. And we'll end camp with probably at least 2 debate rounds, I think. We'll probably let them go AF and neg. So they'll be debating by the end of camp. Yeah. Yes, thank you. The camp will be resolution specific to the new resolution that's coming out, which is in the context of in the context of combat, automation ought to be valued above, thank you, military personnel. It's brand new, so I'm still learning it. Absolutely, brand new. Yeah, that's what it's designed for. Yeah. Oh, yeah, actually, we really encourage, you're allowed to drop off at camp. It's probably only the only thing with NCFCA that is more of a drop off. You don't have to stay parents. Club and tournaments, they're very, they rely on parents in order to run. But camp, you can drop off, but we would love for you to stay because you'll learn a lot. I know Cassie went to camp last year, and a lot of moms are sitting in the back, and they're soaking it up too, so, yeah. About camp, I need to get it together, and I need to get my coaches on their scheduling. It's not. No. The dates are set. The dates are set, my coaches are set, so I'm like, great, y'all go with it. That's really good. National Christian Forensics Communication Association. Oh, it's so good. My alumni are giving me the thumbs up in the back. Any other questions? You know what? Let's talk a little bit about ages. That the senior competition, when I say senior, don't get that confused with being a senior in high school. Competition is divided between seniors and juniors. Seniors are 12 years old by January 1st and up all the way through 19 if you have not earned your diploma yet. Juniors are generally, it's less rigid on the eligibility of the junior age, but it's about 7 to 11. And if we have enough juniors here, we will have a junior speech club, which is really just a low, I think the word I put on there was low expectation. Low expectation, fun environment of just learning how to speak in front of people, prepare their speeches, play some games. And then when they go to a tournament with their older siblings, they get to have a little juniors tournament on the last day of competition. It's while the elimination rounds are going on for the senior competitors, the juniors have their own little tournament. But it's really low key. It's really just to get them involved and excited. They get prizes for doing their speeches, and it's really cute, actually. So. How old's your daughter? Yes. Lori was in your shoes. Alan turned 12 in February last year, and they came to club. They were so sweet. They came to club, and we can't wait until he's 12 next year. So now they're back, and they're like so excited. They did. Oh, absolutely. It'll happen at the exact same time. Mm-hmm. During that 3:30 to 5 slot, that if we have juniors, then we'll have something for them. The only thing that I will say about if you only have a junior, I'm not going to say you can't come by any means, but typically families don't travel the 6 and 7 hours just for a juniors tournament. I don't think I've ever seen it happen. I don't think that it is not allowed, be totally allowed. It's just not typically what happens. Normally they're making that travel and they're making that commitment because they have their older competitors doing the 3 days of tournament as well. Does that make sense? Will it help? Yeah. Any other questions? Okay. Well, we'll close and we'll go out and join with our kids and eat some cookies. Thank y'all for coming.